What's a common theme that you see when we take on these systems, almost in some respects to rescue the project? Are there any common themes that you see with the architecture of those systems that often leads to customers approaching a new partner like ourselves in supporting them with the project and the implementation of that project?
Yeah, so I guess there's kind of two categories of those projects, isn't there? There's ones that are in the infancy of a project, and then there's systems that are more established and maybe were implemented a long time ago, and for whatever reason, partner has stepped back, customer has taken it on themselves and actually figured out that they're a little bit out of their depth and now they need a bit of help. So the infancy ones, usually it's around just design. So quite often, if it's an early project, communication with the existing partner may have broken down for whatever reason, and there's usually things to finish off, sort of unfinished business, if you like. So it may be that the architecture of the data model wasn't quite right, and it's led them down a path. And it's a really hard thing to come in and solve, because fundamentally the data model is the foundation of the entire system. And if you get it wrong, then you end up being forced down a path that you might not want to be in. And it really comes with experience. So at Chorus, I mean, we've got guys and girls who have been working with Dynamics for 5-10 years. I've been working with Dynamics since it was released in the UK. I'm getting on to 19-20 years of working with it now. And so we've had a lot of time and a lot of experience of cross-sector, what to do, what not to do. And we take a big pride in making sure that we future-proof as much as we can for change. So those infant ones, that's usually the ilk. The more established ones will come under two and usually both problems. One is that when Dynamics first went online and became the power platform that it grew into, but the kind of the early days of that, everyone put everything in Dynamics. It was, if there's stuff in the website, put that in Dynamics, stuff in finance, put that in Dynamics. And it lost its identity. So quite often these systems have lost their identity. And our first question is, what is Dynamics here for? Why go back? Why did you implement Dynamics? It's a CRM system. Ultimately, it's a CRM system. And yes, you can have it to do any relationship management, but it's still relationship management. It's not a finance system. It's not a billing system. It's a relationship management system. And so that's always a really interesting question, because quite a lot of the time, if it's an established project, a lot of the people that were there at the start aren't there anymore. And so there's a lot of head scratching, and it's more of a, well, what is it now? And we don't know. It's quite often the answer. And so we do a lot of work trying to almost regress and say, okay, what do you want it to be? Why is it here? So for a charity, it may be because we want to better serve our supporters. Okay, good. And having that in mind is really important, because then when you look at the data that's in the system, you can say, how is this data better serving your supporters? Oh, well, it's not. It's just us coding our income. Okay, well, do we need to do that in the system? Can we start carving out bits and simplifying? At the end of the day, a simple system is an easier system to use. There's no two ways about it. The more that's in there, the more screens there are and click-throughs and processes, the more complex it is, the harder it is as a user to pick it up. And the more that you lose that knowledge as time goes on, as people come and go in the organization, they take that knowledge with them. So that's kind of one part. The other part is application lifecycle management, so ALM. And that is basically governance around your development process. So when the project started, way back when, there would have been more than likely a strict governance about development is done in develop, it's released into 1 or 2 test environments, users test it, business signs off, and it's released to production. and never shall a non-managed solution go into production. Then let's say you fast forward and the partner steps back a little bit and the customer wants to become more independent. They start doing things and they don't adhere to that life cycle management, and they do it straight in production. And now you've got a production system that doesn't marry up to development. And it makes the process very hard. You can't change anything in dev and promote it through because you might lose your production changes. That's the other kind of tangle of wires that we quite often have to sort out, is just taking stock and going, okay, well, this is what production looks like. It doesn't look like dev. How are we going to get them aligned? How are we going to get this back on track so that you've got confidence around a release? And there's no two ways about it. CRM systems are generally a business critical system. So releases have to be stable. They have to be well tested, and there has to be no unknowns or no downtime. So you have to test the release. You have to go through that process. It's not a system that you should be going in and just straight in production changing things.
For those more established platforms that you referred to, is there anything that customers can do to avoid that system becoming stagnant?
Yeah, so in terms of stagnant via kind of no changes going through, as long as that lifecycle management of pushing through from dev to test, sign off, and then into production is kept, you can move quite quickly. And Dynamics isn't a website, so you can't parallel develop easily. You can do it, but it is very, very tricky. So we refer to it as a release train. So once you start doing development in a development environment, that's your train carriage. And if someone else starts doing some development, that's on the same train. And when that train leaves the station of development, everything that's on that carriage is going with it, whether it's finished or not. So you do have to be a little bit careful of coordination. But once you've got that, actually keeping a cadence of moving through those systems is fairly easy. It just becomes hard if you skirt round and you start putting things into production. So my advice is, if you want to keep a constant flow of changes, and business change is inevitable, users will come to power users and say, oh, hey, can you change this field or can you change that field? That's always going to happen. And it will always be, can you do it now? I need it for tomorrow. Being strong and saying, no, we release on a release cycle of, let's say, twice a month. This is when the releases happen. There's currently one in progress at the moment. This is a small change. I can fit it onto there. This is a larger one. It's going to be waiting. Just having those policies so everyone knows what the expectation is. Having those policies in place just means that you can keep the cadence, and then things don't stagnate and people don't get annoyed with the system for not moving.
So how can we, or any partner for that matter, help with that release train, as you refer to it as?
Yeah, so those trains they exist whether you're doing it in-house or with a partner. And really engaging with your partner, we quite often with customers do have a program of continuous improvement. And so that may well be a pot of days that we have available to us on a monthly basis. And it allows them to lodge change requests. We can go through, we can develop them, we can arrange them, make sure that they're done in the right way. The big benefit of doing things like this with a partner is experience. It cannot be underestimated how much experience plays a part in this. If you want to make a change to a field, there will inevitably be a ripple effect that goes out from that. That field may be used in automations, it may be used in scripts, it could be on forms. Having someone that thinks in that way, because that's why we're in the job that we're in, is really, really key, so that you don't have any unforeseen problems when you go live.